get started. Let's continue where we left off before I had to leave to go to the salt mines. Let's bring these guys back down to size. This stuff's dried about 2 hours, maybe 3 at the most. It's been a lot longer than that. And we're going to, so this is what the stuff looks like. This is the color that they look like. Once they have the wash on them. They've got a little bit of a brown tint to them, very little. And it's really noticeable on the Crusader, because the Crusader looks like this and is going to end up looking like that. So it's pretty dramatic. But you need to have that undertone color there to kind of gives it kind of a blend in there. You don't have a whole panel that's all completely one color. I didn't come up with it. Somebody else was doing online when I went back to painting tanks after not painting any World War II stuff for 20 years. Figure, let's see what kind of new tricks are out there. And blammo, there's all kinds of stuff out there that people do now that didn't used to do. All right, so, and that's just applying a strong tone wash over the color. So we're going to do a couple things. We got a couple Panzer gray vehicles, a couple Dunkelgelb vehicles, and a desert one. So I'm going to move the desert one off to the side because we just finished a bunch of those recently. And let's focus on, let's do the Panzer gray vehicles. All right. Now, as I've mentioned before, let me get a paper towel. As I mentioned before, these paints, these ammo MIG paints are great. And they say they are for brush and airbrush. If you plan on brush painting only, don't buy these. I do not recommend them. They suck to brush paint with. What's up, Diego? Don't plan on doing that because they don't cover worth a damn. And they're just weird. So if you want to dry brush with something like Dunkelgelb, what you can do is mix in something like a Vallejo color that has a little bit more oomph to it. And then, to change it, and then you can still use this as a base. Or, just go in a different direction. But it's a pain in the butt to do that. So the Panzer Gray that I used from this is from the Ammo MIG. So I'm not going to use that to dry brush on top of it, even though I basically want the same color. So I'm going to go to the Vallejo equivalent, which is, they call it German Gray. Lofton Chef, how am I doing today? I'm doing great because I'm not at work anymore. Loving life. We're going to try using these. I've had these for a while. Mitch gave these to me many years ago, and I'm like, well, I don't freaking need them, but I held on to them, and this might be handy to, it also might be disorienting. I used them while airbrushing. Let's go to the standard way of doing this. Can I be your friend? You got to get in line, man. You can't jump in front of other people. That's rude. So we're going to take this German Gray, and we're going to just get some of it out right here. If it behaves, come on. Let's have an accent. And sometimes it's hard to tell if there's any of it left. I don't want to leave any of this stuff undone. I think that'll probably be enough for now. And I like doing a little bit of a blue tint to it, which is something that didn't exist many years ago when I was doing this stuff. I just got to find it. It's called Luftwaffe uniform. It's the one I decided to use, and I've been pretty happy with the results. As soon as I can find it here, let's get the... Why can't I find it? Well, look at this. Oh, we've got a wall of colors. So it's probably, it's not super blue. Might be this one. Nope, that's dark gray. Kind of hard to tell. I don't have them organized in a certain way. That would just be, that's like a hobby within a hobby. It's here somewhere. Intermediate blue. All the blues should be down here. Is it not? Here it is. World War II Luftwaffe uniform. This color right here. It may be called something different now. It's still a gray. It's got a little bit of a blue hue to it. Okay. Oh, I appreciate you subbing. We get to that magic 2,000. We're going to do something. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to do something. 1,000 is the important one. You got to get to 1,000 to be able to monetize. 2,000 means you can still monetize and piss off 4,000 people. I haven't done it yet. At least not that many in a row, so. Let's put some of this over here. All right, and let's get a little something we can dry brush with, because the rest of this is all going to be dry brushed. I had one here this morning. This one should be fine. Not one that's super fine. All right. So we've got a Panzer gray. We've highlighted a little bit with some lighter gray, and then we've given it a brown wash. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jack this chair up a little bit. There we go. We're going to mix some of this gray, this should be the same as the undertone color, but a little bit of blue in it. And there's no rhyme or reason to this. And we're going to just apply it over it. So we're going to start adding a little bit of a blue hue to this. "25 years ago, well, more than that, when I was doing 1/35th scale modelers, modelers? When I was doing 1/35th scale models, this wasn't a thing. People just painted them Panzer gray and moved on. And some people still do that. Some people add like a blue filter. I actually am borderline hate doing washes. And the reason I hate doing washes is you have to wait for them to dry. So if you want to work on one vehicle, guess what, pal? You got to stop until it's dried. And that kind of just, I lose my momentum. And I'd rather not do that. What's up, Justin? You got to work about like 2 weeks in a row now, man. You remember how to get to work? What was the total count of how many days you got snowed out? Like 2 weeks? It seemed like it was 2 weeks. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing with the turret. 3 weeks. Holy smokes. And you didn't have to take any vacation day for it? Are you salaried? Did they pay you your salary anyways? Man, don't tell me they did, because I'm going to go up there and work circles around you. Took the road grader to get down my road for 2 days. Whew. So what happens if like the place where you work is open, right? If it's not snowed out, but you're snowed out, like you can't get to work. Is that like an excuse, or like, tough pal, it's your responsibility. You gotta live somewhere a little bit better capabilities to get to work. You're going to get to work here tomorrow, or we're going to fire you. Got one of those situations, or you get paid by the hour. Okay, so you were out of pocket. Yeah, I don't get paid by the hour. Or maybe I do, but it's, it's not figured out that way. There's pros and cons. They know where you live and they understand. Well, who knows? It's probably the slow season anyways at work. And if I'm doing this kind of sloppy, that's on purpose. We want this to have an irregular finish on it. We don't want it to come out like some showroom or something. Some Third Reich showroom or whatever for these tanks. All right, and after we've gone all the way around, we'll go to the earliest one. This should be the driest one. And add more of this Luftwaffe uniform. I mean, this is so dry, you can basically grab it and not even get any paint on you. They're basically just using straight Luftwaffe uniform. We get real precise with some other stuff, but we want this to look irregular. I can't wait to do my first snow vehicle. I think it's gonna look grand. You do have stocks. I got that 401k thing, so I forget it exists. Just leave it alone. All right, now we come to the controversial part. And this is something that I would have not done had I not seen somebody's video. Well, I would have done it. I just wouldn't have used this color. So the color we're going to use to lighten this is not white. That's what I would have done. We're going to use a color called dark sand. We're not going to do very much of it. And we do this if, even if we were doing a green vehicle. If we were doing an American vehicle, we're doing a Soviet vehicle, the same thing. Well, we wouldn't be adding the blue, but. So we're going to add a little bit of this dark sand. It's basically going to be like a warmish kind of gray. Now we're going to go over the things that stand out. Doesn't necessarily need to be everywhere, just the highlights. We're going to do other highlighting as well, but this is just kind of like the mass-produced highlights, if you will. And what I like about this is it's relatively easy to do, and it's pretty easy to replicate it. So in other words, if I'm doing like 5 vehicles, and I want them to look the same. I don't have to paint them in a row. I've gotten good enough to where I can replicate the same results. Okay. Use Wargamer paint. This is Vallejo. You talking about war paints? Not really. I got a couple colors in it. I don't really like the way it behaves. If that's all I had, it would work. It's just more trouble than it's worth. It behaves weird. It doesn't behave weird like this. Like, I wouldn't brush paint this at all. I'd brush paint the war paints. I just prefer the Vallejo. And I have a lot of Vallejo colors. So, I think I have them all. That was the intent anyways. I didn't just go and, well, I did buy them all at once, but the reason I bought them all at once is I sold like a bunch of miniatures that I had, and I just invested in the paints. And it was a good investment because I did this like 20 years ago, and most of the colors are still just fine. Whereas I still wouldn't have played with those miniatures that I had. I saw all my BattleTech stuff, and, you know. Ninja Nobody. Ever hear of Trench Crusade? No. No, but it sounds like it's science fiction or fantasy, and I don't get into that. We're doing some Czech tanks. Some Czech Panzers, some Panzers that were taken over by the Germans, and they put them into service. Probably one of the most reliable tanks the Germans ever had is this chassis. All right, now they really were pretty reliable. And the road wheel design is actually pretty good. You don't have to like tear a bunch of them apart to get to the one in the back kind of thing. But they're also, you know, a light tank. So they'll work in your army, but you got to have more tanks than that. You know, they come fight something big. You know, you need some big brothers. You need some bigger friends. You should stream a game of whatever you're painting tanks for. I have. I've got 2 of them on my channel, but I don't game very often. I don't game very often. Actually, I haven't streamed any games because I haven't played any games, but I always stream my games because they're fun to show people what the crazy, zany shit that happens. It's really unlikely. But some people need to game face to face. I don't. I need to do this. I need to do this religiously. This is what keeps me calm and from being in the news. The gaming face to face. Shit, I haven't met with the guys in a year. So. And the people I play with the exception of one person, they don't paint. They just want a game. You know? Okay, I think that we're not going to go any brighter than this. I think at this point we're not going to go any brighter. All right, so this is as far as we're going to go with this. The next stage is going to be, you know, dry brush and weathering and things like that, pin washing things. So at this point, it's road wheel. It's road wheel time. So we're going to get our black, and I've been using the folk art for the black. I go through a lot of black and white. You might as well use the cheap stuff. And the folk art works pretty darn well, and is like 4 times the amount and a quarter of the price. Well, vehicle paint's not very expensive, but you get a lot in the air. This is 59 milliliters instead of 18, so I guess only 3 times more. And let's get a little bit of water. We already have some there, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do the road wheels, which seem really tedious until you have to paint 32 Roman sandals in a row. And then it's like, oh, this is a piece of cake. Let's see. Everything 40K to DBA, Battletech, D&D, anything at hand, even Gunpla. These are all online. DBA, we won't be painting any more DBA. That would have been. I haven't played DBA in 2 years. Little over 2 years. And let's see how this works. And had I continued playing DBA, and whoa, this is like being intoxicated. Woo! I don't mean that in a good way. This is some messed up shit right there. I would have only had 4 more DBA armies. Instead, I have like 200 tanks and some infantry. And if we ever play with those 15 mil guys, it'll be another game that's not DBA. $2,500 games of DBA is enough games. You know about DBA? Well, check out my channel, man. We've got like 200 games of DBA on there. You didn't know that? Yep. Every game of DBA that I played between, well, it wasn't in a tournament because that's kind of annoying. Between 2018 and when I started doing this, and 2022. So for those 4 years is on there. Got like a couple hundred games on there. Yeah, nobody knows about DBA. Got what I have? About 42 DBA armies? Something like that. It'd take me 6 months to paint an army. Maybe a little bit longer than that. But the biggest problem is that during that time, I can't just go and do something different because I was painting it like, man, I got to get this done for this event where we're going to run this thing. And like, those days are over, man. People that don't have a stressful job or retired folks, they can do that crap. The rest of us, I got too much stress at work to be doing, be put the task for a fucking hobby. If I paint one of these and I go, oh, I want to paint a Japanese tank. You know what I do? I paint a Japanese tank and I move on. Not like, well, I can't spend any single time other than working on that because I need every little ounce of time and, nope. No, media stuff. I keep finding you painting all the time, though. I'm painting every day, yep. I do this so I can stay on track. I'm painting more now than I ever have. What part of the world do you live in? From where dost thou hail? Chinese tanks. Man, I wish it was more like Chinese infantry. There's one manufacturer that makes Chinese infantry for World War II. Caesar, I think. Which are a Taiwanese company. There's a guy actually that has a YouTube channel. That's what he war games. I think it's called something like Wargaming China or something like that. And he makes a lot of custom figures. I don't know what rule set he plays. Might be his own home brewed rules, but that's what he's doing. He's doing Chinese, Japanese stuff. I think he's Australian. Now that I think about it. What's the channel? It's called, I think it's called Wargaming China. If you do a search for Wargaming China, you can see that. And I think he solo plays everything. No, no Abrams. I don't have any. I don't have any modern tanks. I have no modern tanks. I came close to picking up a JS3, but that's not very modern. I think that's the name of his channel, Wargaming China. I can't check it out because I'm using my phone to film. Okay. And then we'll do the MG here. I can never remember what this machine gun is. It's like a ZB-37 or something like that. It's a pretty reliable machine gun. Am I ever going to do a modern tank? Would define modern. If by modern you mean post World War II, yes. If by modern you mean 1990s to today, probably not. Probably not. I did have a set of rules. I did have a modern set of rules called Force on Force. And they were real weird. And they were out of print. I sold them for a pretty penny. That's not why I sold them. I sold them because I wasn't going to use them. You know, I'm not a fan of rules that just abstract a lot of stuff just to keep the game moving. I mean, I'm not the audience for that. You know? If you abstract a lot of the details, then I'm like, why should I suffer painting them? Like, why am I going to, paint all this detail if you're going to just abstract it? But I have no plans on playing. The closest I would plan on playing something modern is, do one of those African imagination type things. And I did start one. I did start working on that, but shit, that was almost 15 years ago. And I didn't get very far. But I've just come to the realization that if I want to get anything done, I mean, look, I've pretty much been working on only World War II stuff. And still got a lot to do. I mean, if I did modern, what would I do? You know? But I did start a imagination campaign coming up with my own rule set that are kind of generic. I don't mind them being generic, but not for World War II stuff. That's World War II is kind of a religious experience for me. There's a lot of Russian tanks I like. Notice I didn't say they were awesome or anything. I'm just, there's a lot of them that I like. I really like the way T-62 looks. I do. I did have modern miniatures. I did have some modern miniatures. Micro armor. Had some Arab Israeli stuff too. Some 73 war stuff. Super Shermans and Centurions and M60s or M48s. I forget which one it is. M113s. T55s. But it was in micro armor, so. BMPs. I never really liked the way the BMPs looked. And I mean BMP 1s. I think I've seen a whole lot of them. I had some people that I knew were really into modern a while ago. Until Gorby ruined everything. They were really into the modern stuff. And yeah, BMPs are just... they're kind of unique looking, but... I like those BTR 80s, the 70s and the 80s. Those armored cars are really cool looking. We got like a 14.5 millimeter machine gun. Chinese, I don't like modern Chinese at all. Modern Chinese don't interest me. Modern Koreans don't interest me. I look at what's going on in the Ukraine. I don't want to get political, and I'm not going to be getting political. But when that conflict started, I was like, oh, this might be something interesting to watch. And I'm sitting there thinking, part of me thinks, if the Russians are supposedly not doing as well as everybody would have thought they would be doing, I would think the Chinese would be doing worse, but I don't know. I mean, the Chinese do have a lot of people, but numbers don't mean everything, so. Okay, so we got the road wheels done on that. Now it's time for the tracks. So I was watching that avidly, and that first week, like one of the first things that happened, they had that Russian warship that went that island, whatever it was called, Snake Island. And they pulled one of those, like the Germans did at Bastogne. Surrender, or, we're going to kill you all kind of thing. And, and then the Ukrainians on the island basically told them, your mother, right? And then the next thing they killed everybody on the island. And then a week later you find out, oh, actually, they didn't kill everybody on the island. I turned off the TV, and I haven't watched it since. Because you're not going to play me for a fool. Like, if you're just going to make shit up, I'm not going to watch it. Because I can make up better stuff. Where's that German SS camo black color? Here it is. Here's one of them always. So, if I know I'm being manipulated and lied to, I'm like, I'll change the channel. I'm watching something different. I don't have time for that. It'd be like, I don't have time to read this. I'm going to read the Cliff Notes. And then the Cliff Notes are wrong. Like, why even bother reading them then? No, I got better things to do. Well, drones. Drones are the same way aircraft carriers. Drones now are the same way aircraft carriers are in World War II. I'm just not interested in them. They don't make the experience fun from a wargaming standpoint. I'm not saying we shouldn't use them. I'm just saying that they're not. There's things that I want to see in a game. There's things that I might want to see in a movie, and if it avoids those things, then I'm just not interested. It'd be like we're gonna make a Jurassic Park movie, cool, and it's all gonna be raptors. Fuck you, I'm not watching it. You know, I don't watch a fucking dinosaur movie to see things that are human sized. Oh well, they're really smart. I don't give a shit. I want to see big mons. I want to see like them fight each other. Same thing. Oh, we got battleships. Let's see battleships slug it out. Well, here's the thing. We got these aircraft carriers. They can see them coming, and we can just avoid fights altogether. I'm like, well, I'm not going to wargame that. You know. The Wagner group was doing good until the leader died in that plane that blew up. Coincidence? I think not. Boy, that guy looked like a convict, didn't he? Yuri Petrushkin, child molester, third class. And I think like and it's funny, I know this because I was looking him up the other day. And I mean like a couple weeks ago. And I think his son runs that Wagner group. So I'm like, something peculiar about this. Somebody was saying on some posts, is it too early to do wargaming? Ukraine, I don't have a problem with playing current events. It just doesn't interest me. You know, Basically, you've got like, if you're going to do Ukrainians and Russians, well, now the Ukrainians have Western tanks, but at the beginning, they basically had, Soviet hardware. They just didn't have a Z on them. I'm like, okay, well, that's not very motivating for me to paint them. And it's funny because way back in the day of the Warsaw Pact and everything, the elite tank, that only the Soviet units had, was the T-80, but the elite tank that they had was the T-64, because the T-64, you got the T-62 and then the T-64. Only the Soviets had them, only the Soviet units had them, and the Ukrainians got a good chunk of them. And what made the T-64 unique is that it could fire an anti-tank guided missile through the barrel. I don't know if it was not very effective, but it had that capability. And I want to say the T-80 had it as well. We're going back to like 1989, 1990. That's where my knowledge of modern shit ends. When I stopped wargaming that area, we did do some fold-a-gap type of stuff. And it just got silly. You'd have some Abrams out there, and what they would do is they have thermal sights, and the Russians didn't have them. So what you do is you drop smoke in front of yourself and shoot through the smoke. I'm like, it's just really, it's almost like a solitaire game. And that was before the Gulf War. And then you have the first Gulf War, and you're like, man, these things are that badass, But the T-72 was for export. The T-64s, only the Soviets had them. And I think Ukraine got all the T-64s, or a good chunk of them. They have good earth minerals. It's got to be more to it than that. I don't want to get into current events because, it's just pointless to discuss things that none of us have the correct information about. There's way too much obfuscation. I mean, there's stuff about World War II we still haven't found out. You think tanks will ever be replaced? They're gonna have some. I hope not, because tanks are cool. I mean, war is stupid. Okay, it's terrible that we're destroying each other. I hate to sound like a hippie, but it's true. The people that are killing each other don't necessarily hate the other side. They're just doing the bidding. But but tanks are cool. I don't know. I mean, I hope not. The thing about World War II that always interested me is that it's a good combination between things that are brute force and technology. You get into modern stuff, it's way too much technology, not enough brute force. And especially naval. Modern naval is like, you're shooting at people you can't even see kind of thing. So from a wargaming standpoint, it doesn't interest me. You play and it just, and it might be somebody's cup of tea. Some people probably like modern combat more than anything else. It's just like some people love American Civil War time period combat. I'd rather go to work than play an American Civil War game. I feel that strongly about it. It's probably my least interested period, to be honest with you. Oh my gosh, I don't have a watch. What the hell's wrong with me? Oh shit, now I noticed. Now I gotta go get it. I'll be right back. You have nerd friends that play Silver War. Well, maybe Silver War is the stuff my ancestors did. Conquistador crap. That's the Silver War. Not your cup of tea. Yeah, it doesn't interest me. I don't care what the nations were in that period. It just isn't interesting. Do it a little bit later, and then you could do some Brits and Russians in Afghanistan and stuff like that. That might be all right. Same thing with what's that war that happened before the Crimean War? Like, not my cup of tea. But somebody was asking, "Hey, can we play the? Is it bad form to play the Ukrainian War?" I said, "I don't think so. It's just a game, you know. I mean, I assume that anybody playing a war is not, playing a war game doesn't really want there to be a war. You know, that's not why you're playing it to be a warmonger. Just interesting tactical situations. That's all. Just like if you're going to play SS troops, you're not like committing atrocities. or, you know, other troops that commit atrocities as well. Just a game, man. No, I've thought about doing World War One because there's some figures out there, same scale of this, and they're called, oh man, what are they called? Tumbling dice. Of course, it's kind of risky to go and get into a period when only one manufacturer that you like makes the stuff for it, because if they go kaput, you're up a creek. Um, you know, that's why I don't understand how these people are like, they're getting into these. Who's the guy that comes up with all? Who are these guys that come up with all these weird sets, these weird scales these days? Not not Victrix. It's Warlord. Warlord, like you get all invested into like, hey, let me get into this Punic Wars in 12 millimeter. Well, nobody else makes whatever scale the hell they are. It might be 13 and a half or something like that. You got all your eggs in one basket. If they go belly up and you're waiting to get some troops to finish it, you can't use somebody else because there's nobody makes that stuff. And you say, oh, I can just 3D print it, but man, 3D printing isn't that easy. Like I have no interest in doing it by myself. I got pro people do that. You know, if I'm 3D printing stuff, then I gotta sub somebody out to paint my stuff, and I got the painting thing down. I mean, that's what I need to be doing. You know, so we have a finite amount of time to work on our hobbies. You can't just try to do everything. You got to delegate things out. Okay. We hadn't done this one? No, we hadn't done this one. Damn. But World War One tanks and World War One armored cars, they are both really ugly. The only thing pretty is machines across the board for World War One, and it's not planes, because in my opinion, most World War One planes are ugly. Almost all World War One planes are ugly. Is the ships? The ships are freaking awesome. I love World War One ships. And yes, yes, they don't have any camouflage, and they have wooden decks and all that kind of stuff. But you know, you don't have to worry about aircraft carriers ruining the experience. And I had World War One ships. But if I did World War One, I would do French and Germans, 1914, because neither one of them wears protective helmets. You know, those spiky things that the Germans had. That was just made of cork. That's like the same thing as having a pith helmet. Pith helmet doesn't protect you from anything. That's why they went away. Like getting our heads blown off. I believe the reason that they created helmets that have protection is to protect you from shrapnel from all the artillery that happened in World War One. Because World War One is like artillery was like the king of the battlefield. Because in many places it was static. You just keep lobbing shell after shell, and let's turn Flanders into the moon. I know there's other theaters of the war, but you could do you could do Russian Austrian. I'd say Russian German, but the German troops were so much better than the Russian World War One troops were really well. It was almost kind of like the first few months of Barbarossa, where the Germans caught the Russians with their pants down. Except the Russians never got any better. They had all kinds of issues. They had some units that were okay, but they were definitely in a train deficiency. But all the armies at the beginning of the war, they all had soft headgear. The French had those kepis. The early French are pretty cool because they've got blue and red uniforms. And they're not loud. It's not like, Napoleonic loud, but, they're colorful. So that's kind of cool. Kepi, right? That's how you say it? Not a kepi. Kepi. Did you see that All Quiet on the Western Front redo? I did, and I don't want to watch it again. I didn't like it very much. I actually thought, believe it or not, that 1917 was better. You like the armored cars of World War One? Yeah, I don't like the wheels of them. They look like a bicycle. Most of them look like, man, we go over some rough ground and we're gonna have some issues here. We're gonna have us a situation. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you heard this the other day, Justin, but I actually thought about you. It would have been this morning, because I saw a stand-up comedian that I think you would have liked, and you already know about this guy. But we watched a stand-up comedian last night on Netflix. We are just kind of flipping around, and man, my wife just he was really really funny, and he was old school, meaning is the remake good? Well, I don't remember the original one anymore. I've never seen the black and white one. I'm allergic to things black and white. Um, and I don't remember the one from the one with Borg and Ernest and John Boy in it. I saw it one time, and I saw it a long, long time ago. Um, and I like Ernest Borgnine, but he just doesn't strike me as a German. And John Boy's mold is really distracting. But the remake is worth watching. The special effects are incredible, and you know what? It makes war look like hell, and it really should. It does. I think it does a really good job of that. What I don't like about it is that it has a lot of the um, what's the word for it? The coincidental shit, you know. But you definitely should watch it. It's definitely worth watching. I don't like some of the choices that they made and how the character behaves, how the main character develops. I don't like some of the choices they did there. The special effects are incredible. The way that they made the war seem horrific is really well done. You should make war seem horrific. You should, you know. But definitely worth watching. But it didn't have as many surprises as 1917. 1917 had more surprises. Now, I didn't like either one of them because, from the standpoint that you only saw it through one viewpoint. But I did like All Quiet on the Western Front, the remake, because I didn't know any of the actors. I'm a fan of that. Like, give me new people, you know? Yeah, if you give me new people, you're not like, oh man, really? Harrison Ford is a Russian sub commander? Come on, I'm not going to swallow that. Right? You don't have any preconceptions of actors from previous things. Oh snap! But at the end of the day, okay, I watch a movie once, cool, all right. Now what? I don't go buy movies. I don't watch things multiple times, memorize all the lines. I'm not that person. Lots of people are that person. I don't need to be one of them. Okay, so that's done with the tracks. Now the problem is I kind of need to weather things and I can't because the tracks are still wet. But let's compare it to the other Panzer 38s that I have. This is what we're going for. And I suspect that these will look better than this one because this doesn't have black lining. Because at the time, I wasn't doing it. So there's no black lining on this one. Did the clothes stop? Hold on one second. Let me go check on that. No, still got 14 more minutes. So we got to wait for that to dry a little bit. All right. We're going to set these off to the side. Wife will be coming in sometime soon. Might have to stop the presses for a little bit. I realized I've got the little Kugelwagen that I haven't done anything with it in some time, and I've put Dunkelgelb on this thing a long time ago. So this has the Dunkelgelb base color and dry brushing. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to see what color Vallejo recommends for Dunkelgelb. And I don't know right off the bat which one it would be. So I'm going to do a... That's nice that that's up to date. That's not what I came on here for. Vallejo, World War II, German paint set. I want to say it's the one that's called Orange Joker or something like that. And they've reformulated this damn thing a million frickin' times. This is the German infantry, German armor paint set. Okay. Model color. What do they got here? They're using dark yellow as a base, and then vehicle highlight as buff. Okay. You like the U-boats of World War One. You know who's the most famous U-boat commander of World War One, right? He's that guy that ended up sinking like those 3 old armored cruisers back to back to back. Can't remember what his name is. Otto Vettinger, I think is what it is. Something like that. Otto Vettinger. He took a U-boat and he took it over to where the British were basically blockading the channel so they could keep shuffling supplies to France. And had 3 old armored cruisers there on patrol, and boom, 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 and one night he sank all 3 of them. There were second-tier ships, that kind of stuff. U-9 is the ship that he used. And he is famous for commanding a different U-boat. And when he commanded that other U-boat, he ended up getting spotted by British forces, and the Dreadnought, and I do mean HMS Dreadnought, the first Dreadnought, went after him and rammed him and sank him. So he may be the only U-boat ever sunk by a battleship, ever. Really kind of an odd situation there. Really unique situation. Okay, so buff. So they recommend buff as a highlight. So I'm going to grab my buff, which is right here. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to use dark yellow because I can tell that it's a very greenish type color, as is this one. So I'm going to take this color and mix it with a little bit of buff and highlight over it, and dry brush up. And we're going to try it on this guy first, because it's got the base color with a wash on it. Doesn't look like it's got a wash, but it's got one. So we're going to put a little bit of this buff, not to be confused with dark sand, which is almost the same color. And I told you I don't like dry brushing. I don't like dry brushing these colors, but we're going to mix it, so it's going to thicken it quite a bit. And these are the readers. Let's put the super readers on. Yeah, Dunkelgelb has a little bit of a. The color is supposed to be has a little bit of a green. Now, it gets lightened up by dirt and fading in the sun and etc. But we're going to go against the grain of this door panel here as much as we can. And one thing that's not known is the amount of what people aren't really aware of is how much shipping the Germans sunk in World War One on U-boats. They sunk about the 75% of the amount that they sunk in World War II. So they sunk a lot of stuff. Because the thing is that, there's no way to defend, at least in the early part of the war. If you get attacked by a U-boat, there's no way to go after a U-boat. Like, there's no depth charges, there's no sonar, there's no, you just have to hope that it's surfaced. You catch them with their pants down and go after them and ram them. And, ramming a U-boat is actually a reasonable thing to do when any little amount of damage to it is going to keep it from being able to go submerge. Otto Vettinger, yeah. He got sunk by the And he was commanding a different U-boat, but he got sunk by the dreadnought. He got rammed by the dreadnought. Really unique piece of information there. I think it was in 1918. It was towards the end of the war. Now, I've got lots of little pencil mount MG-34s. I'm going to put one of them there that are 3D printed. Ooh, I better be careful with this. No, it's not that undurable. Just looks like it. Yeah, I don't like the World War I planes except the Albatross. The Albatross, the falses are pretty good looking too. But I'm not a fan of radial engined aircraft to begin with. That doesn't mean I hate most of them, but I prefer inline engine aircraft, the way they look. U-48? U-48 was his other one. The first one was U-9. U-9 was the one where he did all the damage. Yeah, U-48 was his other one. Yep. That's a really unlikely way to go. Sunk by a battleship. Rammed by a battleship. Well, you had to be really close by. I guess we won't do this one for Africa Corps. Since I'm doing it in Dunkelgelb. We need these for both, so. Kind of hard to find a good price Kubelwagen. I mean, it is a tiny little vehicle. I mean, you really get to know, if you're the driver, you really get to know the passenger in the front seat. I mean, they're right up your ass, you know. I mean, these things had just a little bit more horsepower than a lawnmower. I used to know somebody had a Volkswagen thing that had it all painted like a, they looked significantly different. At first glance, they looked like the same vehicle, but not really. All right, and then we're going to just use straight buff. This thing's been sitting on my desk a long ass time. And it's also a way to like practice on this thing. See if I'm still happy with these results before I go and work on something that's a little bit more of a problem if I'm not happy with it. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Unterseebooten. Yep. All right, now we're going to do the same thing. Let's go with this. Now this is, I got to be really careful, or I'll end up undoing all the stuff that I've done. And it's been known to happen, but I wish that wasn't the case. But so I may actually have to come back in and redo the camouflage over it. So again, this is the base color. Let's get some buff. And we're going to work down here at the... A little bit more buff than that. Take almost all of this off. And it'll turn out fine. I want it to turn out a certain way. You have any BA-10 armored cars? I have a 6. I have one BA-6 armored car, and it's made by a guy who used to come to our shows. It was a resin print, and it's not a very good model. It's actually extremely crude, and it was one of the first vehicles I painted when I got back into this a couple years ago. It'd been sitting in my box for 20 years. But it's not a very good casting at all. Sorry, dude. It just isn't, you know? And I have one. That's the only one that I have. And it's very, very crude looking. BA-10 is just a BA-6 with the more modern turret, right? I think that's what it is. Got the 45 millimeter. I mean, that's a nasty armored car, man. To have a 45 millimeter gun on it, you know, and you got that in the, I don't know when they came out, in the 30s, late 30s. That's pretty freaking nasty, man. I mean, the British were really impressed by the German armored cars, and all they've got is a 20 millimeter autocannon. That's because the British armored cars at the time, all they had was an anti-tank rifle and a machine gun. All they had was like a Vickers and a Boys anti-tank rifle. Well, that's pitiful compared to a 20 millimeter autocannon. But I suspect that the shooting ability of Russians that are in one of those armored cars is pretty poor. It's a cool looking vehicle, but it doesn't look like it's put together quality wise. Oh, here's the garage opening. I'll be right back. Right back in a few. Okay, we're back. Well, you asked, so I'll show you the BA-10. It's not very good. Where is it? Where is that ugly thing? I think it was actually the first vehicle I did. BA-6. Let's see if we can get the light to behave here. Needs to come in from this side to be able to see it. Yeah, it's extremely crude. It's got bubbles in the resin. It actually looks like shit. That should make it a wreck. You know, and the pieces, there's no axles or anything. They just glue on there. You know, that's the color it used to be. Like bright ass yellow. It used to smell like not formaldehyde, mothballs. It's got cute headlights though. God, it's ugly. Ooh. I think Pegasus makes a 2-pack of them. I think Pegasus makes a 2-pack of them. So I'm going to try. Let's rinse this out. I know we're slinging shit around. I'm going to try to go easy on bringing this up because I don't want to undo this camouflage that I did. Let's add a little bit more buff. Let's just use straight buff on here. I'm going to get almost all this out. Hit the corners. Now, I don't mind it going over the camouflage and rubbing some of the camouflage out because that would have happened in normal use. I like these edges to stand out. But I really do like this Ammo MIG paint. However, it doesn't dry brush worth a shit because it's really watery. So, you know, I mean, it's really watery paint. So that's looking pretty darn good at this point. Let me get some details here on the inside. And we are going to put an MG42 here in the back. I'm just not going to install that until we're to that point because the next thing you know, it's in my way till I'm doing all this. So I just, you know, I'm really slow. I'm really creating a roadblock for myself if I do that now. Looks like a Gasland tank. It kind of does, doesn't it? What tank looks like a gas? There's a tank that looks like a Gasland tank. And I saw it. There were some experimental tanks that the U.S. did, either at the very end of World War II or right afterwards. You could play some of them and roll the tanks, but this one in particular almost had like these tracks that were shaped almost like they were high in the middle, and it had 2 sets of those on each side. It was kind of a wacky looking thing. So I wasn't super happy with my airbrushing. I was getting some spider webs. I'm still a noob to airbrushing. I feel like I'm doing it better every time I do it, but still, I got a long way to go. But giving it that dry brushing treatment basically smoothed everything out. Like, there's nothing on here that looks wrong now, like in the style that it's done. And let me show you. Let's see if I can show you okay, here we go. Like, look at this line here. Look how see, I'm not afraid to show up my mistakes, you know? As I show you, hey, I could fix them. Don't worry about it. There's some spider webbing there. Okay, so when I do this, it's going to disappear. Hopefully it's going to disappear. Need more of the base color, Dunkelgelb base, and more of the buff. And we're still going to highlight some more stuff, but we're not going to do that until after we've done the black lining. I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to do the black line. This thing's going to look sweet. This thing's going to look sweet. And I've got several other of these to do. I've got one more 3D printed, and I've got 3 more that aren't 3D printed in the box. So I've got like 5 standard half tracks, which I actually like the earlier half tracks better, but these are a lot more common. These are a lot more common. They're still Yabo meat. All right, now we got our color here. So this allows me to use some of this core color because it's too watery to do by itself. But the Vallejo is really thick. So using them together, we kind of get something that I can dry brush with. The suspension first. Don't be a dumbass. Do the suspension first. Yeah, we got some spider webbing back here. This will smooth all that out. And this is how I got this. It's got a pintle mounted machine gun. It looks like it's snapped. So instead of pulling the whole thing out, breaking it, and re-drilling one, I've got one that's a partial that I'm going to put on there, and it should work fine. And if I'm wrong, then I'll snap the thing off, drill it out, and put a new one in. The bad thing about this late war German stuff is by this point, there's some really bad folks that came out of these things. Because by this time, if the Germans weren't doing horrible stuff early in the war, they certainly were by this time. They definitely are trying to get their fill in before they get overrun. You know, some of them. So, you know, you've got a lot of these can be, you know, for SS units. Because earlier in the war, SS units they're just motorized infantry. They didn't even have any tanks, and eventually you start getting more and more stuff. And then by the end of the war, a lot of the German units weren't mechanized properly, but these half tracks were first come, first serve, and a lot of the SS units were first come. So at least when it comes to like half tracks. Yeah, this actually looks incredible. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I mean, it looks so much better than it did this morning. You know, because we've got, we sprayed it and we added some extra shading, right? And then we did a camouflage, and then it's like, it's kind of missing something. So when we did the wash, okay, so we add some extra depth in there, and then we're doing the dry brush over here. You know, you're adding different levels of interest, so to speak. What toners do I use? I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean, what toners? Me no understand. And I try to keep things simple. You know, we don't have all these like special glaze this and add this with powders, and there's no powder here. I don't do powder. Peruvian marching powder. I laugh when I heard that for the first time. So these Nazi boys were supposedly on some kind of, well, I don't know shit about drugs. Amphetamines or something? What is that? Like Super Jolt soda? Super Jolt cola? I don't know. Cocaine light? The whole thing about dry brushing is take it slow. Take it slow, add lots of layers to it. Don't go too far because then you got to fix it. You know, slow build up. You would think the SS would have the best. Well, they didn't necessarily. In Normandy, the units that were in Normandy, the SS, in Normandy, the best equipped unit in Normandy was Panzer Lehr. For the Germans, anyways. The best equipped units in Normandy were the Allied units, but Panzer Lehr had the best units. Had the best. They had the most. They had the most Panthers. You know, it was close, and then Hitlerjugend first. Hitlerjugend, Liebstandart, Das Reich, all of those are about the same. They had a few more Panzer IVs than they had Panthers, and we're talking like, you know, they had 70 Panthers and 80 Panzer IVs or something like that. So it's not like really disproportionate. You know, because they've got, in one of the battalions, it's supposed to be all Panthers, the other one's supposed to be all Panzer IVs. And by the way, almost across the board, it's the 1st Battalion that has the Panthers. So you're going to see Panthers that have numbers that start with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the Panzer IVs are going to have numbers that start with 5, 6, 7, and 8, generally. I mean, unless they're running some obfuscation type of stuff. You know, at least in Normandy, that's the case. All the Panthers are in the 1st Battalion, in all of the German units. I didn't know that. I just started doing some research, and I'm like, okay, I see a pattern here. What else is left? That's the ones that are initially there. 116th had some Jagd Panthers in roles that tanks would have normally been in. And I guess 9th and 10th were in Normandy. 9th and 10th SS were in Normandy after a while. I'm not so familiar with that, but once you start getting into the late July stuff. Oh, 2nd Panzer was well equipped. 2nd Panzer was pretty well equipped. And the 2nd Panzer has been around forever. The 2nd Panzer Division. Which other ones were in Normandy that I can think of right off the bat? That's it, I think. The 3 SS units, 12th, 1st, and 2nd. 9th and 10th show up later. Panzer Lehr. Oh, the 21st. The 21st is, you know, is its own animal. It's got all kinds of weird vehicles and vehicles that they didn't use for anybody else, and captured French vehicles and modified captured French vehicles. It's really kind of an interesting unit. There's no Panthers in that one at all. They're just Mark IVs and oddballs. It's not full strength. Second. That's it. I think that's all the Panzer units that were in Normandy. Everybody else was on the Eastern Front. And some units were always on the Eastern Front. There's some units that never went to the Western Front. Like I think and the reason why I even know that is because one of the unique vehicles of late war is the Panzer II-L, the Lux, the cute little thing. Mine actually has a camouflage scheme similar to this, and the Lux was in very few units. One of the units that had him was 4th Panzer, and 4th Panzer was never on the Eastern Front. It was only in Russia. Like you got assigned to the 4th Panzer, you stayed on the Eastern Front the whole time. The only reason you weren't on the Eastern Front is because you're basically fighting for Berlin. It's still on the Eastern Front on that side. Pumas are another thing. Pumas are only in like 4 or 5 units, and no units have Pumas and Lukes. No units have both. Panzer has Pumas. 1st SS has Pumas. Who else? And then some oddball type stuff. But there's no unit that has Pumas and Panzer and 2Ls, because that'd be like a really powerful reconnaissance group if you had both of those. Pervitin sounds like something you would take if you made you want to look at little kids undressing. What's wrong with him? He's on Pervitin. Pervertin. Where's that spider web? It's freaking gone. You see that? It didn't take much to just make it disappear. So when I was airbrushing this, I was actually going out of my way to kind of make it like a solid color. Like I didn't want it to just be like, I wanted it to be like heavy, because I knew I was going to end up having to go over this. How do you spell that? You know what I meant. These two things look fucking great. Oh my god. Oh my. Sometimes I'm like, I may not say it, but part of me is like, I don't know if this is going to turn out that good. And then you do something like this, and you're like, mother frick, it looks great. Let's pull out the other armored cars that I have. I've only airbrushed these and given them the dark wash. I've never done this part. And I've been like, I don't know how they're going to turn out. Let me see if I can find them. They're all together. There's the gorilla. Here's an early war half track. It's not complete. Here's another early war half track. Also not complete. Here's the Grilla. This is a Panzer 3L. This is a die-cast model. But none of these are not the things you're looking for. It wouldn't be here. And they're not here. I don't know where they are. That's a sign I don't need to worry about them right now. Here we are. Now these actually have removable wheels. And removable tracks. So I removed them. Oh, there's a little martyr here too. Okay, well. Maybe these are in need of rescue. And these were pre-painted. I don't know how they're. These have, yeah, they're made to fall apart like that. These aren't coming out. Now, yeah, you see this? That spider web there. We're gonna fix that. We're gonna fix all that. Man, this is like a good scenario for like have some Panzer Grenadiers come down the road and have some Americans or something ambush the shit out of them and just blow them away. Ever use quick shade from army painters? Well, is it this? Yeah, that's what I use. That's what I use. It's the wash I use is strong tone. This is strong tone all over it. This is strong tone on top of that. Okay, well that's pretty freaking cool. That's pretty freaking cool. Wow, this looks really good. Really, really good. All right, let's paint some tracks. Cause I want to black line the shit out of this thing tonight. Yeah, I used to use Agrax Earthshade. This, and then it got sticky. It became weird. This is actually the replacement. The original one was this one. I don't throw away stuff. Why don't I throw things away? This one. Agrax Earthshade. And I use this because I saw somebody using it in a video. And then it started like getting sticky as I applied it. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me. That's not going to work for me. So I found the Army Painter once, and I use the Army. And I'm glad I use the Army Painter because it forces me to use different brands. You know, I'm not like, I only use Vallejo, and that's all we use. You know, I'm like, okay, we're better than that. Now let's compare this to the ambulance, color-wise. Yeah, still looks comparable. I need to be careful with that one. That one hasn't been sealed. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the, let's do the tracks first. Where's that SS Camo Black? That's what it used to be. That's what it used to be called. They got changed to German Camo Dark Brown. It's not like they even put the little runes on there, you know? Now I'm going to be careful when I weather this because I actually wasn't really happy the way the ambulance turned out. Because I weathered the track so much that it just blended into the color of the ambulance and it looked like I hadn't even painted them. And that's kind of a pain in the butt. You go through all the trouble to paint something and then it doesn't look like you did it. It looks like you just cut a corner. And all those little water bottles that I didn't put on those Panzers, we're going to put some of these on the outside of this. These are going to be lived in. And see, this is a kind of a vehicle that's really useful in a skirmish game. It has a machine gun, right? So it's not something super powerful. It doesn't have a lot of armor. I mean, it's, you know, lots of things can knock it out. You know, it's open top, so if you get close enough, you could chuck a grenade in there, and then it's really got some problems. You know, it's not like it's just sitting there, just hosing everybody, and there's no way to even touch it. So that's a good vehicle for a skirmish game because it's not untouchable. And that's what I love about this hobby. Right now, I'm on Pervitin. I'm on natural Pervitin, painting this thing up. Everything is right in the world because it's going really well. I wasn't too excited about it, and then I'm like, oh man, this is really looking like it's supposed to look. And that's one thing that's hard to figure out until you get into the groove. So you get in a groove and you've done enough of these that you can paint things how you're happy with them, and then you can reproduce them. You know, I can like do a half track now and then not do another one for 6 months, and they look like they're painted at the same time. Not like, man, I wonder what colors did I use. Now I got lots of decals for these. I'm not going to can paint the decals for the numbers on the half track. I could, but I don't think I will. And I don't know which colors I'm going to use at this point. I'm just going to see if there's a common denominator. I've seen ones with just black numbers. Those look pretty good because they're kind of subtle. There's no point in camouflaging this thing to this level, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're going to put these bright ass numbers, like giving your position away. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint the tracks on this, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break because I got to switch the clothes. I'm going to hang some stuff. We're going to have a hanging, and then we'll be right, and then we'll be back. Maybe 10 minutes or so. So this would be a good time to go ahead and change your diaper. And I actually prefer the earlier war German stuff, but if you do things right with Dunkelgelb, man, Dunkelgelb can really shine because it's such a light color. You know, the light colors like are brighter. They're more they catch your eye more. It's funny because you're talking about Army Painter, and Army Painter was a while ago. They had Army Painter here, and they didn't have Vallejo, and now it's the opposite. Now there's multiple places in town that have Vallejo and not Army Painter, but I like them all. I just don't want to buy the same colors in different. You know, there's no point in having a Dunkelgelb by Vallejo, having one by somebody else, and you know. And I suspect I've never used them yet, but the Vallejo Airs, I suspect that the Vallejo Airs behave the way that these Ammo MiG ones as well. Like they say, you can hand paint with them. You don't want to hand paint with them. They're going to be too watery. But that's just an estimate. I'm just floored how good this looks because I didn't have that same fuzzy feeling when I brought it in last night. And see, this is the see, this is the thing. If I was doing DBA stuff, I couldn't dare paint like a unit for another army. I'd have to keep going on what I was doing. So I can't be like, let's paint some, you know, somebody gave me whatever figures, let's paint some of those as well, right? To mix it up. I couldn't do that because I was on a tight schedule. Like I had to get this stuff done for the game. I had to get them done by the event. Screw that noise. I don't have time for that. That's no way to live. What was I going to check to make sure I had done the same thing with? Oh yeah, the inside of this. All right, now we're going to take a short break while I go switch the clothes. Put them in the dryer. And we'll continue with doing the black. And then after that, we're going to do the black lining. All right, folks, be right back. All right. All right, we're back. All right, so let's move these guys out of the way. And let's get the black out. We go ahead. We've got some tires to do here, including the one on the Kubelwagen. Overkill. Typical. Nothing comes out. Nothing comes out. Squeeze a little bit more. Too much. Happens to everybody. Happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of us. Another reason to use cheap craft paint. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the Kubelwagen first. Hold on one second. Okay. I need to take a look at the picture of this because I'm not sure I know where the rim is, and we don't want to screw that up. Might just be a bad model of the Kubelwagen. That's all possible. Let's lose this. Cool. Man, I cannot see these lighted keys. Let me just... Okay. Okay, that's part of the rim. Okay, good. And I don't use dark gray for wheels, because if you use dark gray or a medium gray for wheels, when you weather them, you get with light gray. And then you end up looking like that one guy who's driving her little sister's bicycle in the 1970s or early 1980s with a white freaking tire. You don't want to be that guy, do you? Next thing you know, you got tassels on your bike. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but kind of cramps my style. Okay. This thing is so darn light. And there's a little shovel that's attached to the side of this vehicle. And it looks like it's like one of those little shovels that you get that are like, for your kids to play at the beach. Like a blue one. It's like really short. It's like this big. Like, you guys need to dig in. If you're going to be here a while. Okay, and then what we'll do is, let's see if I can use something that doesn't put a whole lot of pressure on this. I've got this like, nah, I've got the one that's the reverse one, but I don't have very good results with that. Let's just go ahead and grab this here. You should be all right. I could certainly use more Kubelwagens, but I won't. I don't want to pay a lot for them because it's a tiny little vehicle. I mean, it's a really small vehicle. And you get one 3D printed, it's like they want $10 for one. I'm like, that's the same as like a friggin' tank, and it's like significantly smaller. Not a good value. Even S model, you get S model makes a Kubelwagen pack. You get 2 of them. Yeah, it's like the same price as like a, a Panzer II. Okay. And then I guess I need to paint the actual tread where it's riding on, in case, okay, I missed any of that. So I got it from both ends, but not that one. Okay. Now, these guys, same drill. And this is the longest paint session I've had in many evenings. And there's actually on the inside, there's no rim shown. So we just kind of have to paint something like there's something there, and there isn't. Okay, so there's this one. And of course, we've got some wheels, some inner wheels to paint here on this thing as well. Let's not forget that. And I'm going to need to go light on the weathering, so I don't do like that ambulance and like basically weather over all the black. You can't even tell that I went through the trouble of painting the rubber on these. It's just wasted. I don't like wasting my time. And we might as well paint the MG42. And there'll be one back here in the back too. Like I said, we're going to do that. We're going to do last. That last. Otherwise, it's just in our way. Okay, so there's that one. Let's do the same thing with the Stummel. And then we got to do the front tires. This is actually one of my favorite camouflage schemes. It's just the green by itself on top of the Dunkelgelb. I like it. I like how it looks. Looks good on Panthers, Panzer 4s. This thing. And this black from folk art covers really, really well. Okay. So this is the one we said it was starting to misbehave, wasn't it? Yeah. I think so. All right, let's get old Null out here. Change my mind. I want one that's a little bit more precise. And I actually have the quick shade one made by this company called, what's it called? Dark Tone. So their Nuln Oil is called Dark Tone. I have that one. I haven't used it yet. Damn, this thing is looking so freaking good. And I'm going to do numbers on them. I'm going to use decals. I want them to look nice. And also, I don't want to really correct numbers over a camouflage scheme. That's sadistic if something goes wrong. I could do it, but it would just be a huge waste of time. But I might actually do four digits. I might actually use, do 1000 series numbers. Oh yeah, that looks sharp. On that color. Get those little rivets that pop there. It definitely has a lot less angles than the other versions. Than the B's and the C's and definitely the B's. I think we're going to stop right here. I still have this other side to do, but we can pick that up in the morning. Just turning out really well. All right, folks, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.